Meeting of Monday, November 13th to order. The invocation of Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Reesner.
Our Father, who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, forever.
Amen. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Reesner.
Here.
Councilmember Spar. Here. Councilmember Thacker.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
Councilmember Mansour.
Present.
Councilmember Jones.
Present.
Councilmember Perry.
Present.
The record show all 7 members of council are present. Special council meeting announcement. This is the notice in compliance with Charter Section 3.09B to announce a special meeting of Tiffin City Council on Monday, November 13th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in council chambers at City Hall for consideration to hold department reviews for the 2024 budget, introduction and consideration of an ordinance responding to Director of Finance request for legislation F23-42, appropriation of grants received from Ohio Emergency Management Agency, and any other business council may consider. We have no minutes to report. Are there any committee reports? Evening. Okay, great. Anyone see the need to schedule a committee of the whole meeting? Okay. We are now under reports of the officers. Her Honor, Mayor Dawn Iannantuono.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I get started, I want to mention that normally we don't go through in a special meeting any ordinances, but we are going to do ordinance 23-86. As a suspension, we were given inaccurate numbers, and so we need to go back through it again. And so that would be the only one read. And then also, I keep wiping up my face. I had a special guest this evening. That's why I've got the shirt on. Officer Liz Miller brought in special police dog Leo this evening. Got pictures with him, and I've got hair all over me, and I love it. And so just so happy to have him out and around, and he would have stayed, but he's got extra training tonight. And so they were off doing some training, and so thank you for having her stop in and see me. It was a pleasure to officially meet him this evening. So good evening, everyone. This is the second of 3 meetings to go over the 2024 budget. As you know, I've broken it into 3 nights of presentations. Tonight is the fire and police budgets. Next week is the final portion, and we'll cover public works and engineering department. And also, I think we are televised and we are on Facebook. And so I also want to remind everyone that this Thursday is the 3rd Thursday, and it's a special new one added at 5 o'clock called the Sip and Shop. They will kick off the evening with unveiling storefront windows that have been decorated. And they're also going to light up downtown with Operation Hallmark. And so all of downtown will be lit up. And I want to thank once again the core group of volunteers who raised money and installed all the lights downtown. Randy and Christy Weiser, Chris and Judy Hafley, Ned and Karen Bem, Fred and Kim Zoller, and Lee and Susan Wilkinson, and their crews that helped. So I'll do my report real quick. And so getting into the budget. On page 22, we'll start with the Tiffin Fire Department, Chief Chappell. And there's our PowerPoint coming up.
No PowerPoint tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
No, mine.
We made one special for you.
As we did last week, as they're coming up, I'm sharing with you once again the presentation that I used during the State of the City. And so we've got Chief Chappell's coming up. There we go. And I always like to plug this next screen about how no loans were taken for the road and bridge levy. Everything was totally paid for, and this bridge will be having a ribbon cutting on November 28th at 4 p.m. as things go okay. Will it kick over to the other screen?
It is working on it. I apologize.
I'm talking really fast, so that's not helping matters any.
My apologies.
Well, as we get to that,
Is it quick?
Mayor, while we're waiting, did I see in the Tiffin paper that Fostoria is trying to get a 1% for their streets?
I thought it was Fremont.
That was Fremont.
Oh, was it Fremont?
And it failed, yeah.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay, I
was
didn't
gonna say, I
follow
thought it
up
was
on
Fremont.
Okay, so
So there it is.
they're modeling themselves after Tiffin, that's good, so.
Thanks to 100% of levy dollars going to infrastructure of our roads and bridges, no loan was needed for the completion of the new Ellis Street Bridge. Not a dime has been spent on salaries and/or benefits. I'd like to keep pointing that out. Okay, Chief Chappell, thank you for joining us tonight. For his budget on page 22, start point, no new vehicles this year. Fleet is in good shape. He had hoped to hire 2 more staff. We are just not able to do that for 2024. And his call volumes continue to increase, especially in the 3rd Ward. And so as you're looking over his budget, do you have any questions for Chief Chappell? And Chief, is there anything you'd like to say?
I kind of broke down each section to discuss in a little bit more detail, but if there's questions we want to pose first, by all means.
I was looking on page 22, so I just want a clarification that negative 123,000, that's not cutting positions, it's just not hiring positions. Is that clear? Is that correct? Where it says full-time wages.
It's the mayor's changes. Yeah.
Okay.
My initial departmental
Gotcha.
request had the 2 positions put in there. The 24 budget would not support those, so the budget was reduced by that amount.
But we're not losing a.
We're not
position.
losing any.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, we are on page 22 of 77. Last week I forgot to point it out. I did again tonight.
I got another question.
Okay.
So the overtime, it seems like from 2021, we had 399,000, now we're up to 495. What's the change or?
A few things have taken place with that. We are looking to keep a relatively similar number going into '24. In 2023, we did have to come back to council and request additional funding would be put into our overtime budget. We had several different instances where employees were off. I had one employee that was off for 4 months on injury leave, another that was off for 4 months on sick leave, and then 2 other shorter-term occurrences. Altogether, those 4 added up to over 1,500 hours of overtime that we had to account for, and that was about $58,447 from our budget. We did reduce staffing, minimum manning during that time. We normally have a 9-man minimum. We did reduce that to 8. That was from August 19th through October 7th. But during that time, we also had 11 different instances where recalls were needed to bring in additional personnel at double time and a half to try and backfill because missing that extra person. I discussed with the mayor and city administrator in the budget discussions that when I came on to Tiffin Fire in 2004, we did about 2,400 calls that year, and we had actually more personnel working then than we do now. And last year we did 3,700 calls.
Thank you.
To the fire chief's point, you know, one of the reasons that we wanted to increase or that he wanted to increase, and I fully respect this and hold that, you know, again, this is what tough budgets, tight budgets account for. You know, we do need that funding in the overtime line because we were unable to bring on new staff. It's just the fact of the matter. Fire chief and I also discussion today, the unfortunate fire we had 2 weeks ago here in downtown. That was a single day, and quite a bit of expense was taken on because of the way that we had to bring in people. So those kinds of things happen with emergencies.
Anything else, Chief?
Just to kind of, I guess, brush through some of the sections, the 5,100 series wages and overtime, that is the bulk of our budget. That plus the insurance coverages, that's about 92% of all the money that the fire department receives out of the budget. We actually respond on calls and take care of the apparatus and everything with about 8%. So it is stretched a little thin there. We did have changes occur with our health insurance coverages that, again, we had to come back to this body for additional funding late this year. After the open enrollment period in 2022, there were 9 changes in coverages that occurred. 7 of those actually were increases in costs to the city. So we had to rebalance everything after that. 5300 series, there's a decrease. That's what we cover expenses for the medical director for our EMS operations. We had money in that portion of the budget this year also for the study being done for the new fire station. We're not anticipating any additional costs for that in '24, so there's not been any request for funding in that. In our capital lines, we have money allocated in 2 different lines, 297, 230, 5724, and then also 331, 230, 5724. Those 2 will combine to cover the cost of the new ambulance that we're expecting to take delivery of sometime hopefully early '24. They haven't called and invited us to come look at anything yet, so it's probably still on their to-do list. But once that does arrive, then we'll be in really good shape as far as ambulances go for a while. Knock on wood, please, everybody. So out of the cost of that ambulance, about $60,800 is all that would actually come from the city's capital fund. The remainder of that's being used from the ARPA funds, which I believe the finance director had indicated would finalize the ARPA funds, which the city had to expend by the end of '24 anyway. So it's to me, it's a good use for that money. I appreciate it. So yeah, other than that, pending any questions,
Well,
the lowdown.
and I would just like to point out to those watching from home too, and to commend your whole staff and the fire, police staff, and Public Works for working together on a real mess downtown where total downtown was blocked off. They were doing training Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, meanwhile taking care of a fire on Hall Street. Meanwhile, then that building caught fire, and then they had another fire out at my end of town out behind the mall. And so they're doing all that plus trying to do training. And when you think about it, you think, oh, they go to the fire and they're done. No, they're not done. They went till 10 o'clock that night, and then they had to turn around and clean up everything, clean their hoses, their equipment, their outer gear, all of that stuff. It was a really tough couple days for them, and just really commend you and the support staff around that helped help you guys do your job. And it was rather fitting, too, to have Clinton Fire here and Bascom and Fostoria also helping. They were here for training, and so luckily they were a big help also. So just great job, you guys, all of you.
Thank you.
Just
Yeah,
really appreciate that.
We were pretty busy right then, for sure. The fire on Westwood actually didn't make many of the headlines because of the downtown fire that was going on simultaneously. And I think we all kind of looked at each other with a bit of disbelief that we have 2 structure fires at the same time. This is kind of unusual here in town, but we were able to get it all covered because of the extra help we had. And yeah, certainly there were a lot of agencies that kept us all safe and cared for during that. And it was as favorable of an outcome as we could have hoped for, more or less. We always hope to try and save every building that we can, and that fire just had a pretty good head start on us.
And traffic was an absolute nightmare around. I actually talked to Officer Stafford when I was getting ready to leave because I didn't know if I could even get out of the parking lot. And she suggested, don't go that way. And thank goodness I thought about it and like, ooh, don't take Sycamore Street either. It's, if anybody turns left in front of me, I'm screwed. Thank goodness I went to 231. Traffic was bumper to bumper all the way to the airport. And Sycamore Street, you couldn't even see the end of traffic. It was so backed up, and they weren't going to get in. And so just appreciate the police even telling me that, so I stayed out of the way and got home that night. So just a tremendous effort by all of you, and just really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Chief, 3,700 calls, that's 11 per day, even if it's 5 at number 2 and 6 at number 1. Just can't imagine being a EMT firefighter and that bell clangs and you just never know when it's going to clang and what you're getting into. My ex-neighbor, Bump Elkert, long before your time, Chief, I asked him why he could retire. I think it was 25 and out. You would know better than I. Is it 30 and out, 25 and out?
25 and out, as long as you're at least 52 years old.
Okay, so whatever that number was.
But he was saying that the stress of that bell ringing, et cetera, and et cetera. So I wonder why I had to work 40 years and he got to work 25, but now I know why.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, Chief, that one at Westwood was one of our properties, so I want to personally thank you for getting out there. And the next morning, actually, it was still smoldering in the attic, so they had to come back out and assess all that, so.
We blame Fostoria for that.
Yeah,
I
you
did
probably
talk to
should.
their chief
I
about
was
it.
thinking that.
Fostoria helped us with that call
Yeah.
too, so.
Yeah, so, yeah, thanks for that. And honestly, the only question I was looking at was, and we talked about this before, but the health and life insurance.
Yes.
You know, the increase, is there a reason for the increase? Are we looking at other companies for, I mean, it's up 60,000 from the year before. So I was just wondering, you know, for, you know, just the reason for that health and insurance.
So the fire department's part of the same city health plan through the Jefferson Health Plan that encompasses several cities, as I understand. We just had several of our personnel move from perhaps like a single coverage to family. Some had children, their first children, so it went from maybe employee and spouse to now a full family. In each one of those tiers, as many of us know, certainly does cost the city additional funds. With the rates being what they are for 2024, there was a reduction in what we initially had thought the 24 expense might look like, which is why you do see that $110,000 deduction in the mayor's change line.
Right. And just out of curiosity, that would be also a part of that full-time wages, not having enough money for a full-time position. That was
Yeah.
thinking for that.
The amount reflected there is for 34 firefighters, myself and the deputy chief, and the administrative assistant.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, I have one question about the 33% call volume, third ward. How much of that 33% is medical versus other, let's say?
I would have to dig into it a little deeper for that. I don't want to just pull a number out of the air.
Right.
We do have Tiffin University campus that does give us just a few false fire alarms over the course of the year. Perhaps the Miami Street Apartments as of late the most, but yeah, the majority of that is medical. We have the Willows campus, which is still relatively new out there.
Yeah.
And then the Tiffin Rehab, Sojourn, 2 dialysis centers. All of those account for a pretty good amount of our calls in that area.
Okay, thanks.
And I'd also like to point out too, on that screen, it is pointing out that all of our firefighters are dual trained. They are also EMT paramedics and firefighters, which is not always required in all departments, but is required here. And so you're getting top quality service when these men and women come to your home to take care of you. They're all highly trained. And also, a lot of times our people are the first ones to respond outside of Tiffin. They're first on site because we're fully staffed. And so, again, want to point that out and appreciate all that you guys do.
And Chief, you just answered my question. At the bottom of page 22, it says physical exams, $27,000. That sounds like a big number to me, but then you just said it was involving 34 people.
Yes, this is actually a change. If you look back through the previous years, 21 and 22, we were using occupational health services here in Tiffin through Mercy Health. And we had in the union contract a tiered system where if you were under the age of 30, you would only get a physical every 3 years, 30 to 40 every other year. And then above 40, you would have a physical every year. And NFPA guidelines recommend that every firefighter every year have a comprehensive physical with blood work and EKG and all that fun stuff. We found a service that comes to us here, and they're able to rotate our 3 personnel at a time through different stations. They worked with a nurse practitioner for your general physical. You had labs drawn prior to that, so they were able to review the results with that. Then there was also an exercise physiologist that does your stress test and EKG. They do a full evaluation of your overall health and fitness metrics. And then also you met with a ultrasound technologist that will look at all the little parts of your body that they can look at with that. And they're looking for cancer, they're looking for abnormalities with your heart and heart valves. It's really an amazing physical. It does come with a little bit bigger price tag of, we used to budget $15,000 a year for it. Last year was 25. There's a slight increase in their price for next year, so 27. But we're able to get 45 of our personnel through those physicals. And when I say 45, they come into Tiffin for a full week. They do 9 appointments per day, 5 days per week. I've got 36 firefighters. So this last year, we actually had 9 appointments that were open. We turned those over to the police department. So they were able to get 9 of their officers evaluated with that same level of care to try and catch illnesses and things like cancer, especially for the fire service, very early on, because in many cases it's something that may not be caught until it's unfortunately much later in the game and you start to develop symptoms.
Other questions?
Okay.
All right.
Chief Chappell, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, Chief Pauley. His will be on page 19 and 21, support staff. And I want to mention Chief Pauley is truly appreciative of the outpouring of support from the community to bring back the K-9 program. It is an ongoing expense in the budget. The wellness program that focuses on mental and physical health in place with all employees annually. They do physicals along with the fire department program, as Chief Chappell just pointed out. They still down on manning, so retention is still a priority. We had hoped to hire another officer. We are just not able to do that this year in 2024. And so, Chief Pauley.
Good evening, everybody. I'll just touch on a few things within the budget, and then obviously pending any questions you might have. As you look through, you can see most of my lines there's no change from the previous years. We did ask for an increase in a couple of lines, and I'll touch on those. The first is other maintenance was increased by $15,000. And the reason for that, and that we were prepared for that, is when we went to body-worn cameras and our in-car camera service, it becomes a big ask from the public. They want to be able to see body-worn camera video. They want to see what happened at a complaint, which we obviously provide for them when that happens. The easiest way and the most efficient way to do that is through cloud services. Otherwise, we would have to have servers here and maintain those servers and work on and dedicate a person to doing that. And so the $15,000 increase is so that we can have that service for the community for our body-worn camera and in-car camera systems. And so that will be an ongoing yearly annual price going forward. I'll need to continue with that. The other, I guess, bigger change or bigger increase was with the K-9 program. It's under, let's see here. It is 5694 on page 21, right at the top. I had initially requested $10,000 for that line. But with the donations from the public, which was outstanding, this community really stepped up to help with the K-9 program. We felt comfortable with cutting that in half to $5,000 for the coming year, supplemented by much of that donation that came in. So again, the public kind of saved us on that one. So we cut that to $5,000 instead of 10. And then really a few decreases here and there. I cut the clothing allowance down a little bit. I was initially asking for 2 officer positions. One of those officer positions is a position to, for lack of a better way of saying it, backfill our school resource officer position. Doug Skornica, Officer Skornica, works at the school. However, he counts as staffing for me. And 90% of his work is done in the school system and handling calls within the school system too. So I don't want to negate that, but he's not on the road. He's not working the road. He doesn't count as manning for the road. And so this Tiffin City Schools provides 75% of Doug Skornica's wages. And so upon asking for 2 additional people for next year, having conferred with the mayor, city administrator, finance director, it was determined that I would need to cut at least the 1 down. And so we did that. We cut a staff for next year, a hire. We're not cutting any staff, current staff. This would just be for someone to hire next year. And so we have cut that out. I am still going to try and backfill Doug Skornica's position with a hire this year or into early next year, if possible. But that would be at a 25% of his wages, not 70, not full, not 100%. So that happened. And then the overtime budget, I cut both dispatcher and police overtime budgets. When you're down in manning, as was said by Chief Chappell, when you're down in manning, overtime happens. We have to be able to cover services for this community, calls for service. We currently are authorized 30 officers for the Tiffin Police Department. We haven't seen 30 officers in years, many years. We currently have 27 sworn officers, and that was just near the end of or about the middle of this year when we hired a lateral position to come in. We were at 26. And so the 1 more addition would give us 28 of our 30. And that will help a lot, but understand overtime is a thing. And when something like that fire happens, much like Chief Chappell's folks are working all night, so are we. We're just doing different jobs, but we're there all night too. And that costs the city money to do that sort of thing. And most of that is overtime. So I guess that's really it. I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Well, as I did with the fire department, I'd also like to do this with the police department. I commend all of you also for what you do. Community outreach alone is amazing. You're always out there with the Citizens Academy. Sergeant Watson keeps developing a fan club because he's so popular with that, and just really appreciate him taking the time out of his life to do that. And the same way with Safety City, that whole week that your officers are in and out of there, and there's always several of them. It's not just 1 or 2, it's several of them giving of their time. And even the human interest stories we'll see where one of them is playing basketball or football with a child.
Right.
All of that stuff is just tremendous, and we just really appreciate it. And your officers are all trained to de-escalate, not gin things up. And so
For sure,
just
yes.
really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Mayor. To comment on both of those things, de-escalation is a part of officer training. All of our folks are trained in de-escalation. And so, and that's not typical of a department of our size, to have everyone trained in de-escalation techniques. What that helps is our use of force goes down because we're able to talk our way through things. We can kind of calm the waters a little bit at a critical incident, or maybe someone's having a mental health crisis, and maybe we can calm the waters a little bit. So very proud of our officers that can de-escalate and bring matters to a safe conclusion for everybody. And so, yes, and we will continue that. As long as I'm chief, we will continue with that. And with regard to the community outreach, I said when I came on as chief that will be a part of the DNA of this department. We will be out there constantly with the community, engaging with the public, learning from the public, talking with them. And so we've done so again this year. We're hitting marks that have never been seen at the Tiffin Police Department with community outreach, and not just programs. much like you said, Mayor, stopping, getting out, walking around, talking with kids, playing basketball, throwing a football around, drinking lemonade, hanging out, go to the school, walk around the school. Myself and another officer very often just walk downtown and hit a store, hit a shop, walk through, talk to the folks there. So it's part of the DNA of this department to do that, and I'm very proud of that fact. So thank you for mentioning that.
I forgot to mention the bike patrol being brought
Absolutely.
back too.
Absolutely. Yep. Our bike patrol's back as well. So all good things are happening.
And as it says down at the bottom of that screen, you're also a good sport about some other things too.
I am. The truth is, this job is a very serious job. Police and fire, we take our jobs very seriously. But if you know most of the fire department and you know most of the police officers, we don't take ourselves too seriously. You can't. And because of that, we're able to do things. I don't care about getting laughed at a little bit or making fun of myself or.
They didn't know it was you anyhow.
Sure.
So I've digressed as usual. Open it up for questions. Oh.
I just wanted to make a comment in regard to the SRO position. Council had approved that contract earlier this year with the schools. That was one of the things that Chief Pauly was working on this year was cleaning that contract up. There were some quirks in it before that meant that we were actually paying a little more than 25% previous to the changes that were instituted between us and the schools. So I really appreciate Chief for doing that. And part of that at the time, and I think we explained it to council then, was our intent to, again, backfill that position to make sure that we have adequate road patrol in there. So we wanted to honor that when we were going through the budget this year.
Thank you.
I think we might need to update Chief's picture.
The same thing. Just wasn't gonna say
With
it.
this, it's winter time. It's time to grow
Do pictures for new staff, so.
Chief, I know dispatchers is a strenuous job, and again, never know what they're getting into. And I'm trying to do the math. I guess I'm trying to back into what Councilmember Spar made years ago when he was a dispatcher, but how many dispatchers do we have? Because $350,000 for 6, I don't know how many we got. 10?
7.
7. Okay. And that was too easy for you. A tougher question, and I didn't make it down to Citizens Academy. Did you incorporate the bowl of wraps into the citizens?
We did not.
That was my suggestion a while
It's a
back.
great suggestion, and maybe you can come next year as a guest, and they can shoot you for it. I will say that the mayor and the city administrator were good sports, and when we first received the bowler wraps, when we're training in the bowler wraps, the city administrator took a shot from the bowler wrap.
I have video on my phone.
Well, then put me in, Coach.
Okay, all right. Do it. Count on it.
Chief, isn't it as expensive? Isn't it like $45 a shot?
A cartridge, yeah, each cartridge goes in. But you know what? The tool is really geared toward, it's not even a use of force, technically a use of force tool. It is really, if you think about it this way, it's just a big giant hug. And that's what it's supposed to be. So someone having some sort of mental crisis, and let's say, for instance, I guess picture in your head a little bit of a scenario of someone in mental crisis, maybe in the middle of West Market Street, and maybe causing traffic control problems or potentially gets hit by a car because they're just not all there right at that moment in time. What this affords us to do is to hit them with the bowler wrap, shoot them with the bowler wrap, which would wrap around them and essentially hug them, and then the officers would be able to go up and get them without endangering that person, without endangering the officers. It's really, that's what it's kind of meant to do. And so I think it was a good investment by the Tiffin Police Department to have that tool.
And I didn't mean to make light of that because it definitely is worth using it. I just meant in the case of the police academy, using it and seeing.
Sure.
It's a little expensive to,
Oh, okay.
Sure.
to do it
right.
for that
But we would
reason.
make an exception. We would make one exception.
Just
One.
I'll donate it. I'll donate 45.
He's already been tased.
How much for a tase? I got that.
Fundraiser.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Not to me.
Just one. I'm just curious, the special response under supplies and materials, what is that exactly?
So under, do you have a line number?
I do.
5, right?
Yes.
6,
That
9,
was your question?
5. Oh, yes. So that's, a special response is a special response team. That's our SWAT team.
Got it.
And so we did cut $1,000 out of our special response team, and I felt comfortable with doing that. I mean, I obviously had asked to keep it the same, but when cuts needed to be made, I felt at least a little more comfortable cutting from that part of the budget, because we're a multidisciplinary team. We've collaborated with Fostora, we've collaborated with the sheriff's office. So pulling our resources allows us to stretch our dollars, I guess. And so I felt comfortable with cutting that a little bit.
Thanks.
I just had one question out of just curiosity. For police dog line, what all does that include? Like, does that include food? Does that include, shots? Okay.
Yep, it includes, it's basically the care and maintenance of the dog and any equipment. So typically, if you go years past, when you start a canine program, you're in the $7,000-8,000 range for care and maintenance and kind of getting it up and running. We had the benefit of this community that helped bolster that big time for us. And so that's why I knocked it down to the $5,000. But yeah, it does. It takes care of the vet, food, and any care and maintenance of the dog and vehicle and equipment.
And the dog, Leo, does he stay with Officer Liz then?
Does.
Okay.
He does. Yep, he's her live-in partner on duty and off. And yeah, the mayor and Liz got a chance to meet him today, and they licked the heck out of both of them.
Good. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Great.
Chiefs, I appreciate both of you probably staying over to be here tonight, and really appreciate that. Thank you for
Thank you.
input.
Thank you.
That concludes my report, other than reminding about the suspension.
Thank you. Clerk of Council Ann Forrest.
No report, Madam President.
Thank you. Director of Finance Kathy Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like to call everybody's attention to ordinance 23-86. This is new, and what I need to do is revise the budget, the grant amounts that we receive for fire, police, and dispatch, the $236,000. You just approved that on November 6th. I appropriated that into the budget according to spreadsheets that we were given from Ohio EMA, which is the ones that gave us the grants. When we processed these last week, it became apparent that these figures were incorrect, which we did not know. We were supposed to use these figures, send this back in as proof that we made the payments, and then show them the proof that we paid them by giving check stubs. So discussion ensued with Fire Chief Chappell and Deputy Chief Holman when we sent out the pay stubs. So they came over, we had a discussion about these figures, and it became apparent to us that they were inaccurate. So what I need to do is reallocate that just into wage lines. I think I broke it down into wages, Medicare, and also pension. I believe that it will work if I put them all back up into wages. So we're just reallocating. It's the same amounts, but they're all going to go back up into the wage lines. The way we have to pay this is we have to create deductions for the employees to actually take care of the pensions and the Medicares. So, and the way to make that work, it needs to all go into the wages.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reesner.
Thanks for getting this together, Kathy. Then you want the 3 reading rule suspended too, right?
Yes, please. Yeah, we only have until the 24th of November to pay those according to the grant. And it also is completely different from a normal payroll, so we cannot do it when we're doing a normal pay. So we're trying to fit it in between. And since we couldn't make it work last week, we realized there was a problem with the figures. Now we only have next week to get it done.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mansour, do you still have
My question's answered, thanks.
any other questions for the Finance Director? Okay, anything else from you, Kathy? Finance Director, sorry.
Just wanted to let everybody know, I kind of wish we weren't the guinea pig on this one. I wish we would have waited till one of the other cities that we knew actually did it first. But after the discussion that we had with everybody, I called another city that I heard got the same grant, and everyone is confused by the spreadsheets.
It's not just us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate your work on it. If nothing else, Director of Law, Brent T. Howard.
Yes, just one item. Under motions, it's appropriate for the process to call for a motion to read ordinance 23-86. Since you have all the ordinances listed, you need that motion to narrow it down to that one ordinance, which was part of your meeting call.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reesner, that was your ordinance, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you. We are now under written communications.
The Finance Director's request for legislation, number F23-42, to amend the 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate funds into the police and fire budgets.
Thank you. Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-42 is prepared tonight as ordinance 23-86. We are now under oral communications. Anyone wishing to address council may step to the podium, sign in, and direct their questions to myself. Great. All right, we are now under motions. Councilmember Reesner.
Motion to read ordinance 23-86.
There's a motion to read ordinance 23-86 this evening. Is there a second? Councilmember Mansour.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
New business or other business?
Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Any other motions this evening? All right, we are now under resolutions and ordinances.
Ordinance number 23-86, introduced by Kevin Reesner. Ordinance amending 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to revise an appropriation of $236,000 in the Police and Fire Department budgets for grants received from the Ohio Emergency Management Agency.
Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance 23-86. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for immediate passage of ordinance 23-86, suspending City Council's 3 reading rule.
Thank you. There's a motion for suspension of Council's 3 reading rule for ordinance 23-86 and passage. Is there a second? Councilmember Spar.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Madam President.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Reesner.
Yes.
Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
And Perry.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Reesner.
Yes.
Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
And Perry.
Yes.
Ordinance 23-86 passes with a vote of 7-0.
And that concludes the legislation.
We are now under other business. Yes, Mayor.
I just wanted to talk to the incoming new council members. There's several people here this evening, and I've been working on a training setup for trying to get everybody up to speed a little faster, since 5 of the 7 will be brand new on January 1st. And so I'm working on that, and Brent has already had something that he's given out over the years too. And so we'd like to kind of sit down with everyone and meet, and we're kind of looking at the December 11th meeting. It's the one that's at 5:30 in December. if you're possibly available. And we'll make calls to make sure that would work for you, and if not, we can do another time. But I thought about actually even having you come in and sit in and actually run through a mock agenda, even so that we can start going through what you would do, how you proceed, how you motion, things like that. And so it's pretty detailed out. I've actually literally gone through the whole agenda and itemized out what you will do at each point. And so just trying to make this change for everyone
Very much appreciated.
a little more helpful for everyone. And then Brent will be great with his advice on how you do things also. And so we're looking at the December 11th at 5:30, and we will reach out to see if that works for all of you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Reesner.
Just double check on that ordinance. Did we have to do an emergency too?
Not on this
vote for that?
ordinance,
Okay.
no, because of it's an appropriation, and that code section that's cited allows it to go into effect immediately.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Law Director, do we need to modify then is it December 11th a special meeting, or is that a regular meeting?
It is a special meeting, and the question has come up is, do we need to have a public meeting for this, since the new members of council are not council members yet? My thinking is that we should, my advice is that we should have it as part of the public meeting. It could be in the other business portion.
Okay.
And it will allow the public to see and learn, along with council members, the procedure, show what we're doing to make sure that everyone's well prepared at the first of the year. So I think we should kind of embrace the public meeting law as a part of this. So I think it should be a public meeting, part of a public meeting.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilmember Perry.
I think that's a great idea. I remember being new on council and so happy to have Mayor Dawn next to me because I asked her so many questions and what we were doing. So confused at first. So the more clarity we can provide and, detail it out, I think the better.
And that's kind of how I was looking at it, because on each side it'll have one of you, but on this side, up here, they're not going to be close enough to Kevin to ask a question and
Right,
stuff.
yeah.
And so it kind of comes in handy to have somebody to ask. And this way, maybe we can prevent some of that.
Yeah.
No, I very much greatly appreciate that as well. You guys taking the initiative on that, and that's a heavy lift. So thank you for taking the time.
We just want to get everybody up and going
Yeah.
without missing a beat.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for council this evening? Okay, seeing none, we can adjourn. Thank you. 5 minutes to spare, John.
I was thinking 6:30.